The election process. So in our continuing discussion about our rights, more specifically voting that we're focusing on, we're going to look at more about that right to vote. The part that we're going to look at today is the people who we actually can vote for and how they get to that point. Like, how does somebody get to be a person that is in an election? So we're going to look at how people like me and you become politicians, how they get on a ballot, how they are someone that who could or could not win an election. So our objectives, we're going to describe and explain the nominating and election process used in the United States. So we're going to try and figure out who these people are and how they get to be people that we vote for or not vote for. We're going to evaluate the purpose of the election process and its effectiveness. So we're going to look at if we think it's good or not. Our standards are there. Remember, we're continuing to look at our rights as U.S. citizens, and one of those rights is voting, so we're trying to understand more about that right and the rights that we have when it comes to voting. And our central questions are, how are candidates? Those are the people that we can vote for. How are they nominated? How do they get to that point? And what are elections and what effect do they have on the United States? So why do we have them and how does it affect our lives? So before you can vote, what needs to happen? First, people must be nominated to run for a position. So somebody that is on a ballot, like somebody that you can vote for, they don't just show up on there. Usually a bunch of people decided that they were going to be the person to run for a position. So you guys are probably most familiar with presidential elections. So when Barack Obama ran for president, it's not just because Barack Obama decided, I want to be the president. A bunch of people said, we think that you'd be a good person to run for president. And those people nominated Barack Obama. And he accepted the nomination and then ran for president. Second, they choose who to run on the ballot. So a nomination means the act or an instance of appointing a person to office. So saying, we think you'd be a good person for this job. The ballot is the piece of paper or a card that you use to cast or register a vote. So when you vote, the ballot is literally like the piece of paper that you write on. But today, in today's elections, it's usually electronic, so there's usually just like buttons you press and stuff like that, but it's still called a ballot because it's where you put your vote. And the election is the act or process of electing someone to fill an office or a position. So when we have an election, it's to decide who's going to get a position, who's going to get a job in government, like president. So how do they become nominees? What they will do is after they get nominated, they'll announce it. They usually just say, I want to run, and they announce that either on the news or maybe in a newspaper or online in today's world. So that person would self-announce or announce that they're going to be running for an election. Where did they get picked? There's a thing called a caucus, and a caucus is when a bunch of people, usually from a political party, they get together and they decide who's going to be the nominee. Like, they think, who's the person that we can put out there that people are going to like the most, that people are going to vote for the most. So at a caucus is where Barack Obama was picked as the candidate for president from the Democratic Party, for example. Once they come up with the idea or the person that they feel has the best shot at winning the election, they have a national convention. And at the convention, that's usually when they announce or officially announce who's going to be their nominees for different political offices. So that's when they would decide if that Barack Obama was going to be the candidate for president. And you'll see the people that are picked usually accept the nomination. They'll give a speech and say that I accept the nomination. They'll say thank you, and then they'll start the election process. That's not the only way. I mean, you can get on ballots. You don't have to have a caucus and a big party and stuff like that. In smaller elections, like a more local, like in your town, for example, you can get on an election ballot a lot easier. You just have to have a lot of signatures. We call that a petition. So why is nomination a good thing? It gives us choices. It makes it so there's at least two choices for who we're going to pick to lead us in a certain spot. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's usually way more than two people. Because these people, the people like that you see up on the screen, for example, they had to beat out a bunch of other people to win the nomination. So a lot of people compete for these nominations, and then the political parties usually pick the best ones based on how people are reacting to all of the choices. If people are saying that they don't like somebody that might get nominated, that person probably isn't going to get picked to run. So what happens after they actually get nominated? What's the next step? You guys have all seen this. This is where you start to see all the billboards and TV ads, and you see them on TV all the time. This is when they're running for office. They're actually trying to win an election. So some ways that they do that: they try and get endorsements, like you see that picture of Barack Obama with Oprah Winfrey. They try and get people who have a lot of power or sway over the American people. They try and get support from that person. So like what you see in the picture there is Barack Obama getting support from Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey's very famous. A lot of people watch her show and her TV network and read her books and things like that. So people who like Oprah might therefore listen to Oprah about why they should vote for Obama. That's the idea of endorsing. In the middle picture you see a billboard. That's an example of advertising. They'll advertise, they'll send things in the mail, they'll have billboards, they'll have TV commercials, all examples of advertising. And the last thing is canvassing, where they literally just go around the country and ask people to vote for them. You can see that in the third picture. I was actually at an event. Barack Obama came to a town very close to my house, and I went and saw it. And he was talking and just saying what he planned to do if he was president, and asking people to vote for him. It was kind of interesting. Now, this stuff costs a lot of money to advertise and travel around the country, all that kind of stuff. It costs lots of money, millions and millions and millions of dollars. Where do they get that money? Usually they fund it themselves. So they have to get that money from either their political party, or they can use their own money to fund that political campaign. They only get about 10%, sometimes less than 10% from individuals, people like me and you. They can also get money from PACs, which we've talked about in the past, which are political action committees. They can get money from organizations who are trying to help a candidate. So, for example, if there's a candidate who says that they want to improve education in the country, and they're really, really going to focus on education, a political action committee that has a lot of teachers in it probably will contribute to that candidate, because that candidate sounds like somebody who's pro-education or wants better education for people. You can also contribute to it. A lot of people don't. But when you file your taxes, there's a little box, and if you want to give some of the money that you're going to get to the presidential campaign fund, you can. You don't have to, though. So after all of that, after all of this nomination and advertising, trying to win votes, all the money that's involved, after all of that, there's elections. And the elections are usually held in November. There's some other ones called primary elections that happen earlier, but we'll focus on general elections. They happen in November, and in that one is when you get to go to the polling station. We're going to talk about that more in some of the upcoming lessons, and you make your choice. So all that stuff that the candidates did, like the pictures you saw with Barack Obama, with Oprah Winfrey, and the picture that had the advertisement, and the picture of him going around and asking people for votes. All of that is to try and get as many votes as possible. And in this general election, that's when they see if what they did pays off. Because the general election is when we get to pick who we want to win and be in the government. So that's the nomination process. Make sure you join us for class on Tuesday and Thursday. If you have questions or need help, please contact me. My information's right there. Be sure to answer the questions that are underneath this video. If you don't know anything, good luck.